Once upon a time, in a small town surrounded by rolling hills and quiet forests, there was a shelter where many dogs and animals awaited their forever families. Among these animals was a dog named Max, a big, golden retriever mix with soft eyes and a scarred past. Max hadn't always been at the shelter, but when he first arrived, it was as though his spirit had been crushed. His fur was matted and dirty, his body thin from hunger, and his eyes seemed too old for his young age. It was clear that Max had endured a great deal of pain and suffering before finding refuge in the shelter. Max's story began long before he entered the shelter. He had been found on the streets alone, struggling to survive. No one knew exactly how long he had been wandering, but it was obvious that he had faced hardship. The streets had been a cruel and unforgiving place for him. Sometimes people would throw food his way, but most just ignored him, treating him as invisible. He had learned to trust no one, believing that every person he encountered could potentially cause him more harm. One cold, dreary winter day, Emily, a compassionate animal shelter worker, was driving home when she saw Max stumbling through the snow. He was weak, barely able to stand. Without hesitation, Emily pulled over and coaxed him into the back of her car. She gently covered him with a blanket, and as he lay there, shivering, Emily promised him that his life was about to change forever. At the shelter, Emily and her team worked tirelessly to care for Max. They gave him warm food, gentle baths, and checked him over for any injuries. Max was still a sweet soul, though shy and wary of the people who tried to help him. Emily could see the sadness in his eyes, and it broke her heart. But she also saw something else, a glimmer of hope. She knew that with time, Max could learn to trust again. For weeks, Emily spent every possible moment with Max, sitting quietly beside his kennel and talking to him softly. She never forced him to interact, but slowly she built a bond with him. It was a quiet trust that grew day by day. She would talk to him about her day, about the weather, and about the future. Max in turn began to respond. He started wagging his tail when he saw her, a small but powerful sign that he was starting to heal. Max's journey was not an easy one. He had his moments of doubt and fear, sometimes retreating into the corner of his kennel when strangers came by. But Emily never gave up on him. She knew that Max needed a special kind of family, one that could offer him the love and patience he deserved. One rainy afternoon, a family came to the shelter. The Parkers, a young couple, Sarah and Jack, along with their 8-year-old son. Jake had been thinking about adopting a dog for months. Jake had always wanted a dog of his own, and after much discussion, they decided it was time. But what they didn't expect was to find Max. As the family walked through the shelter, Jake immediately spotted Max sitting quietly in his corner, his eyes glowing with a kind of sadness, but also something else, something that touched Jake's heart. Max's quiet demeanor seemed to resonate with the boy, who was also a bit shy and sensitive. Jake slowly approached Max's kennel, holding out his hand in a gesture of peace. At first, Max didn't respond. He looked at Jake, his eyes filled with uncertainty, and took a hesitant step back. But Jake wasn't discouraged. He knelt down, getting on Max's level, and simply sat there offering his presence. He didn't try to rush things. He understood that Max needed time, just like he did when he first felt nervous around new people. Minutes passed, and slowly Max began to move toward Jake. His steps were tentative, but they were steps of trust. He sniffed Jake's outstretched hand, and then, without warning, he gently nuzzled the boy's cheek. It was as if Max had finally found a kindred spirit. That was the moment the family knew. They had found the dog they were meant to bring home. The adoption process was simple, but that didn't mean it was easy for Max. The car ride to his new home was filled with the sounds of Jake's excited chatter and the soft hum of the engine, but Max remained quiet, his large eyes staring out the window as if he was unsure of what lay ahead. It was a new beginning for him, but also a new chapter in his life. At the Parker household, Max quickly adapted to his new environment. The house was warm and full of love, and though Max was still hesitant at times, he felt safe. The Parkers had prepared for his arrival, setting up a cozy bed in the living room and gathering all the toys and treats they thought Max would enjoy. Jake was especially excited to show Max the backyard, where they could run and play together, but Max didn't rush. He took his time, walking cautiously around the house, getting used to the new smells and sounds. He discovered that there was always food available, that he had a warm bed to sleep in, and that Jake was always there with a gentle hand to pet him. It was a life he had never known, and each day brought new moments of joy. One evening, as the family sat together in the living room, Jake looked at Max and said, "You're my best friend. Max, you're my forever dog." And in that moment, Max's heart, which had once been so broken, began to heal completely. He was no longer the scared, lonely dog he had been on the streets. He had found his place in the world and his family, who loved him as their own. From that day on, Max's life was filled with love and adventure. He ran through the fields with Jake, played fetch in the yard, and even helped the family through tough times. Whenever they faced challenges, Max was there, offering his quiet, steadfast presence. He had become not just a pet, but a member of the family, someone who would always be there, through thick and thin. And so, the rescue dog who once wandered the streets alone with no hope in his heart became the beloved companion of a family who gave him everything he had ever dreamed of: love, security, and a forever home. Max had found not just a family, but his true purpose, to love and be loved in return. He was a reminder that sometimes the best rescues are the ones that happen to both the dog and the people who choose to open their hearts. As the sun set each evening, Max would lie on the porch, his head resting on Jake's lap, gazing out into the horizon. It was as though he was silently thanking the world for this second chance, a second chance to finally belong, to finally be loved, and to finally find his forever family.